So hi, hello and welcome again. Oliver here, Microbehunter here, and today in this video I would like to answer a long email that I got about buying a microscope. Specifically, is it better to buy a used microscope or should you buy a new microscope? It's not an easy thing to answer, and obviously there is probably not one correct or one right way, but I hope that this video today will give you a little bit more insight in helping you make a decision. Now the picture that you see here, that is one of my old microscopes that I have. It's probably around, I don't know, 45 years old, I would say. And it's a used microscope which works perfectly fine. However, it might not be a microscope that everyone would like to have because others might prefer to have new microscopes. But you know what? I'm getting already too much into details. I would like to read out the email first because the email actually summarizes quite well and quite nicely the issues that many people are having. And I would like to give you my take on the whole situation here. So, dear Oliver, I absolutely love your YouTube channels. I really appreciate all the work and effort you put into those. Thank you very much for the nice feedback, of course. It's still hard to find good, approachable information on microscopes, and your channel and website are the best sources out there. I'm emailing you because I need some microscope help, and I don't know anyone else I could ask. I see you accept questions in the past, so I hope I'm not bothering you too much. No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I'm quite happy if you ask questions, because then I have another basis to make another video here. So I recently got a Swift SW3ATT as per recommendation on your channel. Yes, I did make a video about this microscope some time ago. I quickly show you a picture of this microscope so that you can actually see it. No, it's not this one over here. It is this one over here. It's the Swift SW380T, and many people have used it already, and it's a pretty decent one, and it's not so expensive, and that's also one of the reasons why I've recommended it. However, it might not be according to everyone's taste, and that's what we would like to explore today. Now, I believe it's got damaged during shipping because it's not working properly for binocular use. Since it just arrived, I will just return it, but it's got me thinking that maybe I should get a second-hand Olympus CHT microscope instead. So that's already a very interesting point here. It already shows that if you buy a new microscopes, then you have, in many cases, a possibility to return them. Right? So even if they're damaged, or even if you're not happy with them for whatever reason, in many cases it's a no questions asked returns, especially Amazon. They don't ask any questions and you just send it back. Now, if you buy a used microscope, however, the issue is a little bit different. If you buy it over eBay, then usually there are no easy returns possible. And also, if you buy brand microscopes like Olympus, Zeiss, Nikon, Leica, new, you also cannot just simply return them so easily, right? So you have to be a little bit aware of that because in many cases those brands will put together the microscope according to your needs. And then they're basically shipped, and then you cannot just, if you're not happy, you cannot just simply return them. So you see, what I'm trying to point out here is it's not only a question of the microscope itself, but it's also a little bit something of the sales policy and returns policy that you may have, right? So in any case, the Olympus CHT microscope, that is a model that I think was released either in the 1980s, I think the early 1980s. It is a specific sub-model of a so-called of the CH2, and it's a follow-up model from the model that I just showed you. And what I would like to do today is I forgot to mention this at the beginning of the video. I would also like to do a little bit of an image comparison, okay? So to help you out here. Now, here's briefly what I'll be using the microscope for. I'm a scientific illustrator, and I want to take pictures to use as reference for drawing and for posting on my website and social media. I'm studying college-level biology by myself, so being able to observe and run some home experiments similar to what one would do at college would be very important to me too. That's already a very important piece of information, so this means that you're already a little bit familiar with microscopes, and this, of course, is something you have to take into consideration. Yeah, using Reinberg filters and do-it-yourself polarized light would be very important for me. Should not be a problem. Right? I really want to get very colorful images. That'd be great for art and social media. Yeah, so you have already somewhat of an idea of what you want. But the email goes on here. And here is where it's becoming a little bit interesting again, concerning especially the pricing issues. I live in the US and my budget is only around $250. That's what I paid for the Swift model, but I found the Olympus CHT for an eBay for $175. Now the description says it was from a lab and under regular maintenance, and this should be working in excellent condition. That's another interesting point here. So we have to read a little bit between the lines here. What does it say here? Was under regular maintenance. Yeah, those brand microscopes, generally in many cases, universities and research organizations, they have some kind of a contract with a servicing company. And what they will do is they will continually maintain and service those microscopes. And this is something that generally is not done with lower cost microscopes that you buy, let's say, over Amazon or so, right? So those older models like the Olympus CHT and BH2 and the others, essentially, you maintain them and they're designed to be maintained and to be serviced. Many modern microscopes that, like for example the Swift, it's fairly cheap actually, and also pretty good from what you get for, very good actually. But it's not designed to be maintained. It's not worth it because the maintenance costs would be simply too high. You might as well just get yourself a new microscope, right? So there are two things that worry me about this model, about the Olympus. The type of illumination is tungsten. Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one. Tungsten is the one with the filament, yeah? Instead of halogen or LED like you recommend. So the tungsten is actually the older illumination system, and then came halogen, and then much later came LED. And tungsten has, the disadvantage a little bit that it generates quite a bit of heat. And the colors are very red in nature. And tungsten also has a little bit like also with halogen. Both of them, halogen and tungsten, are similar in the sense that if you change the brightness of the lamp, you also change in color temperature. So if you at a low intensity, the color is more red, and at a brighter intensity, the color is more blue. So you have to adjust the white balance. So this might be something you might take into consideration. But you can kind of reduce that problem a little bit if you are using a daylight or a blue filter. Then so-called a daylight filter. Back in the analog days, they used those blue filters, the daylight filters, to actually give a more neutral color balance here. It does not have a trinocular head like the Swift. I wonder how big of a difference the image quality is between them, and if in any case the trinocular head would have more of an impact and better optics. That's something that you have to decide. It's a trade-off. Of course, you can always consider that you get yourself the CHT microscope and then later upgrade and try to find also on eBay a trinocular head. It's not going to be cheaper, right? That's simply something that I have to also say. Just because it's used, it does not automatically make it overall cheaper at the end. I had a very beginner amp scope before that and no condenser, so I feel very satisfied with the Swift image quality. At the same time, I never used a truly good microscope to know the difference. Could you give me some advice on this matter? Thank you very much. And so on. I apologize for the long wall of text. No, please, no apologies here. There was a follow-up email that I'm going to read to you later because I emailed him a short explanation. But what I would like to do now is I would like to simply give you a little bit of an image comparison, and then I would like to show you something else as well, how the microscopes might be different. And in order to do that, I'm going to switch over to the picture again. So that was the Swift microscope. So let's have a look. That's already the first image. So I'll be comparing the following three microscopes. That's an introductory €100 maybe, microscope. I included that one simply as a reference. Many people start with that. Children, for example, start with those. And I simply wanted to also give you an image comparison here. And that is the CHA model. It's not the CHT that you were looking for, but it's somewhat similar. And over here, that's the Swift SW380T. T stands for trinocular because you can connect the camera. So now let's have a look at some of the pictures here. This one over here is from the Olympus, right? And you see that the background color is a little bit yellowish, and that's because of the tungsten. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here, right? And I'm already at... by the way, I've taken the pictures using my mobile phone directly through the eyepiece. Okay, so and no color enhancement or contrast enhancement or white balance or anything. I'm just basically showing you the pictures as they came out of my mobile phone camera. And this is basically how it looks like, right? And what you can see over here already a little bit, you see over here it's slightly bluish on one side here, right? Slightly yellowish over here, that's called chromatic aberration. and is something that you have to live with because so-called regular achromatic objectives until have that. It's not a real problem, and as at least it's not very strong here. But that's basically what you're going to get, and if you're not happy with the contrast or the color, so well then just basically process it with a little bit of Photoshop, and you'll get a nice white background. Everything's can be fixed, but essentially that is the almost 50-year-old Olympus microscope, right? Just wanted to show that to you. And as you can see here, that's the whole image through the eyepiece. Let's have a look at the next one. This one over here is the small microscope, the introductory microscope. Now the line that you see here in the center, that is a pointing arrow. You would just ignore that. It's in the eyepiece. It's just an arrow so that you can point to it. And let's zoom in here a little bit. I mean, actually, at first sight, it also looks pretty decent, I think. Considering it's a 100-euro microscope. Honestly, I think quite okay. On the outside, there's not such a huge difference, but look, when you zoom in, here, this is the difference, right? That's real chromatic aberration here. Yellow over here and blue over here. But again, I mean, if you just want to observe some water samples or do a little bit of fun microscopy work, honestly, many people wouldn't even notice that unless they're pointed out. Right? And you only see it really if you actually really zoom in. However, this chromatic aberration actually does make the overall image a little bit less sharp, right? But then again, I mean, honestly, it's a cheap microscope, right? And it gets you started already in microscopy, So you see, just for casual use, if you want to observe some water life or whatever, I mean, why not, right? It's only, of course, the microscope is much smaller. It doesn't have a condenser, all these things. So it's not quite as convenient and comfortable to use. But if image quality is the thing that you want to look at first sight, at least, it doesn't look too different, right? But now you cannot unsee it, that's the term. You cannot unsee it anymore. I mean, objectively, it's of course a significantly worse image, right? Objectively. So, but let's move on to the next one. And now that is the Swift. Let's zoom in over here, right? Look at this, okay? This could maybe, I don't know, maybe it has to do something because the LED generally has a lower, how do you say, spectral range. But compare this here now from the Swift. All of them are used basically with the same same magnification, 10 times objective. Okay, look at this here. At least just the chromatic aberration here. Actually, I don't see any. And these are just the regular standard optics. Let's compare it again. Okay, so that's the Swift. This here is the introductory kids microscope, as I say. And this one here is the Olympus. When you zoom in. I mean, actually, if you just look at this, I mean, you see the image quality can be a little bit deceptive because it also depends a little bit on whether you open or close the condenser, right? But you see, what I'm trying to say is at least at the unless you zoom in, you won't see a lot of a difference. Okay, but actually, if you do zoom in, I mean, you can actually see some differences. Okay, So and now I'm going to so that's basically lesson number 1, image quality, right? And now I'm going to show you something that's not often referred to. I mean, if you, for example, read some forums. I mean, they are sometimes very critical some of the people are very critical if the engineering is not done properly. I would like to show you now something here as well, another aspect, and I would like to show you over here look at this here. This here is when I remove the trinocular head of the Olympus. This is how it looks in the Olympus. Look at this here. The dovetail is held in place. Look at those nice, how do you say, shapes. All of this costs money, really, to make, and it's kind of held in place here, and and over here there's a screw over here as well. It holds it in place. What I would like to simply now say is the following. Let's have a look at the other one, and this one is with a Swift. Now, when you open it, the Swift, you see all of those little metal pieces here? That's because those screws over here were scratching on the dovetail. right? And this causes abrasion. And yeah, basically this is something that yeah, you don't always see from the outside. And that's of course because they had to keep the manufacturing costs low. And this has absolutely no impact on the image quality, right? Unless the filings fall into the objective down here, has absolutely no impact on the image quality, right? However, it is a cost reduction, yeah, measure. And for some people, however, this is an absolute no-go. You can't do that, yeah. And for other people, say, who cares, right? It's so. What I'm trying to say is, it's a question of personal preference, really, a question of taste. What do you expect the microscope to be? Do you expect it to be also perfect in engineering, and yeah, or is it say, okay, I can accept a little bit of a trade-off because it really doesn't impact so much on the image quality? Right. So isn't it kind of interesting that the Swift over here actually seems to have, I mean, I was not able to see any chromatic aberration, but the mechanical quality over here is clearly not up to the level of the old 50-year-old Olympus, right? So you see, what's more important for you, right? So let's go on a little bit over here, and this is also the dovetail of the Swift, and you can actually see over here there are some scratches now because of those screws. Right, and again, this is really shows that there are different philosophies in choosing a microscope. What is important for you? Is this mechanical manufacturing quality super important for you, or do you just say, who cares? Because I just want to use the microscope for observation. And different people have different preferences for that. So in short, there is no right or wrong. It's really a question of I would say, even sometimes personal taste. Now I want to show you something else here. Again, those two microscopes over here. That is the Olympus, and it turns very smoothly, obviously, right? Very smoothly. So if, for example, we've been using this specific microscope in school for many years, and if there are two students, for example, watching the same specimen, you just basically turn over the binocular head, and then basically the second student is able to observe that, and there was no abrasion, right? Why did I get the microscope? I got it for free because ultimately the microscope was not usable anymore, because I could not turn any of the focusing knobs, and the knobs of the mechanical stage could not be turned because the lubrication oil got hard. It solidified over the years. So what I did is I got the microscope for free, but I paid 200 euros to get it serviced by a certified Olympus servicing company. Right, so I got the microscope for free, but essentially I paid 200 euros to put it back into a workable condition. Right, so I gave it to the guy, and he serviced it. He took it apart, he lubricated and cleaned everything, and then I got it back, and perfect. Right, and that is something that you generally don't do, or is not done with microscopes that you essentially buy over let's say Amazon, right? Because for the same amount of money you already get a new microscope, right? So how does this look with the Swift, for example? Yeah, you see that it's much more wobbly. Right, and that's the reason why there was this abrasion. And of course you can tighten it a little bit, but again, it has absolutely no impact on the image quality. Right, but you see, different people have different preferences. For some people, they say that's an absolute no-go, and other people say, "Who actually? I don't know. Who cares?" Right? But you have to kind of cut the costs somewhere, because that's the reason why those microscopes are affordable. Yeah. So as you see, it's not the image quality; it's sometimes the mechanical part. Right. So I just want to basically now move on a little bit and read you the other part of the email. And where are we? Desk view here. Okay, so basically I explained this a little bit, and I got the following email. Thank you so much for the detailed explanation. If you can end up making a short video, could you expand a little more on the image quality topic? Yeah, that's what I try to do. The summary is that just by looking through it, you're probably not going to see a huge difference, but by zooming in, you are. And what you can always do, of course, is if you have got the Olympus, you can always exchange the optics if this is something that you want to do, right? Now, I don't really know what exactly would be slightly different in this case. Slightly wider field of view, sharper image. Well, the field of view depends entirely on the eyepiece that you're using, the field number, right? And that's essentially it. It's not so much the objective. Sharper image. Well, again, as I mentioned already, it depends on the actual optics that you're using, and the modern optics these days are pretty good already, right? Even the low cost ones. And I think what I read once or heard once is that the modern low cost optics, they're using new materials, they're using computer designed light path calculation, all these fancy things. And for this reason, actually, the low-cost cheap optics, the modern cheap optics, sometimes actually can, in some cases, even overperform or outperform the older optics. Yeah, so optics is not really the issue here, right? And over here, yeah, I'm very tempted. I'm very tempted to get the Olympus scope to the customer support and repairability alone. Yeah, but then you have to actually. I'm just saying, you got to have a contract with the customer. With Olympus or some certified company. And this is also going to cost you, of course, yeah. And they had an issue. He had an issue with actually finding someone at Swift, but that's not company specific for the Swift. It's generally like this. That nowadays, if you buy microscopes, low cost microscopes online over retail, it's generally difficult to get support. It's not just an issue here. I would say, that is just something where I just want to say it's a little bit depends on the. How do you say on what value do you place on it? I mean, the Olympus service also costs something, right? It's also not going to be free. So you see what I mean? There is nothing like a perfect microscope. It's not just the optics. It's also some of the mechanics. It's a question of personal preference. It's a question of what you value. Do you want to value some old 50-year microscope, which is, if you keep it well, maybe going to last another 50 years? There's no reason why it shouldn't, right? So where is your emphasis really, or is it what is important for you? And ultimately, I think, and that's my personal view, is I mean, I get it. I mean, I like gear, right? I like gear and microscopes and microscope hardware as well. But ultimately, it's a hobby of observation, right? And let's not. How do you say? No, well, that's no, I shouldn't say that. I wanted to say, who cares about the microscope as long as you're observing nature and as long as you're having fun observing nature. I shouldn't say that either, because different people have a different approach to the hobby, and some people like collecting old microscopes, other people like repairing old microscopes, other people like more the mechanical aspect of it, others like the biological aspect of it. There is not a single correct way. So I'm actually going to retract that, what I almost wanted to say, which is let's just observe nature and the environment, and let's have fun observing microbes and cells and so on. And I mean, microscopy is a pretty broad hobby, and different people have different preferences in that hobby, and that's perfectly okay, right? And what I probably would say is you have to be clear a little bit into which direction you're going yourself, and ultimately, maybe that's the bottom line. Most likely you're not going. It's if you have long-term interest in microscopy, you're probably not going to be you're stuck with one microscope alone. You're probably going to buy more sooner or later. Yeah, and I think that's the important thing: is whatever you do, don't lose the fun. And if you want to take the chance on buying a used microscope, even though you don't know exactly if it's going to work well, or if you know exactly if it needs to be serviced or not, if you feel subjectively that this is the one that you're kind of drawn to emotionally, right? Then I think you should go for that. Whichever one it is, right? You have this emotional aspect as well, right? I'm going to leave it at that. I see that I've been already talking over 20 minutes. I hope you found this still a little bit, how do you say, informative. I know opinions vary, but that's exactly the reason why we have a comments section right beneath the video, where you can also share your personal views and opinions. And I want to leave it at that. Happy microbe hunting, and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.